Imagine a place where a marriage contract can last 45 minutes, and some women marry deceased men who are no longer in this world. It sounds impossible, but there is a country in the world where this happens due to a law that is as old as it is extreme. In this new video from Uncensored World, we travel to Sudan, one of the most extreme and unknown countries on the planet. The nation with the most pyramids in the world, a remote corner inhabited by the most aggressive crocodiles in Africa, and the tallest people on Earth, known as the Giants of Africa. A place where men wear makeup to seduce, scars are worn as a symbol of pride, filed teeth are pure beauty, and where a woman can choose a husband as long as she owns enough cows. Get ready to discover one of the most extreme and fascinating countries, a nation with deserts and borders so hostile that they seem to swallow up those who venture too far. Let's begin. In the heart of Africa, in a region where the desert meets the waters of the world's most famous river, lies Sudan, a country as ancient as it is enigmatic. A vast, harsh, and majestic land that has seen empires rise and fall, leaving behind secrets that still surprise archaeologists and historians today. Sudan is surrounded by some of the most important territories on the continent. It borders Egypt to the north, Eritrea and Ethiopia to the east, Chad and the Central African Republic to the west, and South Sudan to the south. Its privileged location along the Nile River makes it a natural corridor between the Mediterranean, the Sahara, and sub-Saharan Africa. It was part of the British Empire for decades, shared administration with Egypt, and its map was shaped by colonial decisions that still influence its borders and cultural diversity today. Unlike South Sudan, where dozens of different peoples and beliefs coexist, Sudan developed a more homogeneous identity influenced by Islam and the Arabic language. The majority of its population professes the Muslim faith, and Arabic became the dominant language after years of Ottoman and British presence. Even so, beneath this apparent uniformity, there is a hidden mosaic of tribes, dialects, and ancestral cultures that have survived in isolation for centuries in a vast and hostile territory that few know and even fewer dare to discover. Many are unaware that traditions so ancient and secret survive in Sudan that even the Sudanese themselves do not speak of them openly. Rituals that defy modern logic and unwritten laws that can decide the fate of a man or an entire family. Traditions so extreme that, later in this documentary, you will discover how it is possible for a woman to marry a man who is no longer alive. Geographically, Sudan is a world apart. It is a country where the plains seem endless, the deserts burn under a relentless sun, and suddenly, fertile regions appear, fed by the waters of the Blue Nile. This extreme mix of landscapes has shaped, generation after generation, the way of life of those who inhabit it. Because of this reality, the population density is surprisingly low for such a large country. To better imagine it, Sudan occupies a territory equivalent to France and Spain combined, but fewer people live here than in the city of Madrid. There is so much space for so few people that, in some areas, there is literally one person for every 10 soccer fields. In these places, you will find no cities or roads, only remote tribes that have learned to survive where almost no one else would dare. One of the most extreme deserts on the planet, the Nubian desert, stretches across these desolate areas. It is not just sand, it is an endless void where the heat beats down like a hammer and the drought reaches almost impossible levels. There are regions where not a single drop of rain has fallen for centuries, and the air is so dry that skin cracks in a matter of minutes. Explorers describe it as an African Mars, a territory so hostile that even in the 21st century, there are corners where virtually no one has ever set foot. Yet, against all logic, nomadic communities such as the Basharans survive here, a people so resilient that they can find their way without maps, find water where no one else would, and endure temperatures that would cause any other human being to collapse. For them, living in the Nubia is not a feat, but their daily routine. In this desert, temperatures can exceed 50 degrees Celsius during the day, a heat that burns the skin as if you were walking under an open oven. And when night falls, the thermometer can plummet to a few degrees below zero. This brutal contrast, from unbearable heat to bitter cold in a matter of hours, is part of the natural environment for the nomads who have been crossing these lands for centuries. This extreme reality also marks Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, recognized as one of the hottest cities on the planet. In Khartoum, in the middle of summer, the temperature often easily exceeds 50 degrees Celsius, something that very few capitals in the world experience. To survive this extreme climate, the inhabitants of Khartoum build traditional houses made of mud bricks, a material that breathes and keeps the interior surprisingly cool despite the heat outside. High ceilings allow hot air to rise, interior courtyards act as small oases in the shade, and thick walls block the sun as if they were ramparts. The oldest parts of the city were also designed with this purpose in mind, to escape the sun and heat. That is why its streets narrow, twist, and change direction, as if they were a labyrinth. This is not an urban whim, but a 1,000-year-old strategy to create shade on every corner. This irregular layout is especially noticeable in the souks, where the streets intertwine in such a way that it is easy to lose your bearings, even for those who live here. The souks of Khartoum are famous throughout the country because their narrow, covered passageways always seem to lead you to a cooler space, as if they knew better than anyone else how to escape the heat. Among spice sellers, artisans, and fabric merchants, the air moves differently, protected by wooden roofs, tarps, and arches that filter the light as if it were liquid gold. Outside the souks, the sense of intrigue does not disappear, as Sudan is a vast country with regions so remote that they seem to exist outside of time. Remote villages with tribes that almost no one has seen, night ceremonies, and codes that no foreigner understands. In this country, a marriage can last less than an hour, lineage is worth more than life, and a mistake can cost you much more than your reputation. There are areas where roads become sand tracks, maps are no longer accurate, and cell phone reception disappears for miles. That's why, for a foreigner, venturing into these regions without a guide would be like getting lost in a maze even bigger than the markets of Khartoum. In certain regions in the west of the country, near Darfur, traditional guides use almost invisible signs to find their way, such as mounds of stones, placed branches, or even variations in the color of the sand. For them, these are clear markers. For an inexperienced traveler, they are just details of the landscape. That is why it is said that in some areas a visitor can get lost, not because something strange happens, but simply because the territory is so vast, changeable, and complex that only those who have grown up there know its true paths. But the country hides much more hostile realities, where you could get lost and never return, especially in some of its border areas. Sudan borders regions that have experienced long periods of instability, and this has turned several border points into places where no traveler should ever enter. In certain sections, the roads are controlled by local groups. There are passes that change administration depending on the time of year, and routes where official maps are no longer reliable. Even the Sudanese themselves avoid entering without a guide, because the situation can change from 1 kilometer to the next. These are areas where only those who know every hill, every path, and every landmark travel. For a visitor, crossing them without local support is not an adventure, but sheer recklessness. These are spaces reserved only for those who understand the reality of this region. These realities are often extreme, such as the country's most controversial practice, and surely one of the most eccentric in the world, a tradition that has to do with a law called the law of lineage, a rule so ancient and powerful that it still dominates the lives of thousands of families. To understand this tradition, one must imagine a world where a surname is not just a name, but a living spirit that is passed down from generation to generation. Among the Nuer and Dinka, 2 of the most influential communities in southern Sudan, the continuity of their lineage is sacred. It is not negotiable. It is not questioned. And this gives rise to one of the most shocking secrets of this culture, because in these ethnic groups in Sudan, If a man dies without having children, his family cannot allow his name to disappear. If this were to happen, his spirit would remain restless, trapped between worlds, and with it would also be trapped the reputation, lands, and rights of his entire family. That is why there is a social obligation that surprises anyone, especially if they come from outside. In this society, if a man dies without offspring, another man must have children in his name. It is not a myth nor a poetic metaphor. It is a real responsibility. The brother of the deceased, or a close relative if he has none, must father a child with the widow. But that child will never be his own, nor will he inherit his lineage. That child will always be considered the son of the deceased. And worst of all, refusal is not an option. A man who refuses to do so may lose the support of his clan, be cast out of the community, disinherited, or considered a disgrace to his family. In a society where the clan is everything, that can mean losing more than anyone can imagine. This intense pressure led to the creation of a ritual that is also unique on the planet. Not because of its name, but because of the way it is lived here. Ghost marriages. A tradition that seems to have come out of a forgotten holy book, but which is still alive today. Ghost marriage works in Sudan in a way that is as surprising as it is logical within this system. The family of the deceased pays the dowry as if he, the man who is no longer in this world, were to marry for the second time. It is a new marriage, even though he has died. This is not a simple symbolic gesture. It is a real dowry, an authentic marriage contract recognized by the entire community. After this payment, the woman remarries the deceased through a special ritual. This rite officially makes her the wife of the deceased, even though her husband exists only in name and memory. In this way, he is legally integrated into the clan, and any child born will be considered the child of the dead man, not of the living man who will be obliged to try to father it. A living man is then chosen, usually a relative of the deceased, whose sole role will be to father offspring. But this man will never be a husband, nor will he have any rights over the woman or authority over future children. His role will be strictly biological, or in other words, to father children and then withdraw. In order for this tradition to continue and to comply with the law of lineage, so-called express marriages are practiced in Sudan, unions that can last as little as 45 minutes. That is the time the clan considers sufficient for the chosen man to fulfill his sole duty, to father the child who will bear the name of the deceased. Nothing more. There is no cohabitation, no emotional bond, and no romantic relationship. It is a strictly functional act that must be performed to keep the lineage of the deceased man alive. The most shocking thing is that, as we said, the chosen man, whether he is a brother, cousin, or close male relative, cannot refuse. It is not a personal choice, but a cultural responsibility. Refusal would be to challenge the law of lineage, an affront that could cost him prestige, protection, rights, and his place within the clan. In communities where family is everything, refusal would be tantamount to complete isolation. Therefore, once named, the man participates in the intimate ritual with the widow, and as soon as the purpose is fulfilled, he withdraws from the process forever. The woman remains married only to the deceased. Future children belong to her deceased husband, and the living man returns to his life without claiming anything. Express marriage exists for this purpose, to fulfill tradition, fulfill spiritual duty, and ensure that the name of the deceased never disappears. Once the first child is born, the bond ends. The clan considers the mission accomplished and the lineage of the deceased alive. You may be surprised, but in these societies, in the eyes of the community, the woman is married to a deceased man, the children belong to him, and the living man is nothing more than a substitute, a shadow that appears and disappears when no longer needed. It is a strange system for the modern world, but it is part of the soul of these communities. It is not seen as something tragic, but as an act of continuity, respect, and spiritual balance. If you are enjoying discovering these fascinating realities, leave us a like and subscribe to Uncensored World. As you can see, here we show you the planet like no one else does, and we love having you with us, so thank you. This practice is still alive because it guarantees the stability of the clans, and although it is hard to believe, in the 21st century there are still communities where this rule continues to be mandatory. And it is precisely in these same regions that some of the most fascinating ethnic groups on the continent live. Peoples recognized by anthropologists around the world as the tallest humans on the planet. The legendary African giants. Travelers arriving in these regions for the first time are bewildered when they see the Dinka, a people recognized by anthropologists around the world as one of the tallest on the planet. It is neither a myth nor an exaggeration. In many of their clans, men easily reach an average height of around 1.91 meters, while women can approach or even exceed 1.85 meters. That is why many consider them to be the tallest humans on Earth. To understand this better, just compare them with other countries. The average man in Spain is around 5 feet 8 inches, in the United States around 5 feet 10 inches, and in Mexico the average male height is close to 5 feet 7 inches. This means that, next to an average Dinka, a Spanish, American, or Mexican man can feel almost tiny. Added to this imposing stature is something even more impressive: their agility. The Dinka are not only tall, but surprisingly light, fast, and resilient. Their long bodies, defined musculature, and ability to travel long distances under the scorching sun seem otherworldly. It is as if nature had sculpted their bodies to survive and dominate one of the harshest environments on the continent. The Dinka respect the law of lineage and ghost marriages, making them one of the most traditional and ancestral societies in Sudan. Genetic studies conducted over decades explain part of the mystery. Researchers have found a unique combination of factors: natural selection that favored tall bodies for moving across open plains, a very ancient genetic legacy, and a traditional diet rich in milk, beef, and cattle blood, an essential source of iron and protein. A surprising curiosity is that some recent studies conducted on Dinka refugees who grew up outside their ancestral environment show lower average heights, close to 5 feet 9 inches. This demonstrates something incredible, that their extreme height does not depend solely on genetics, but also on diet, environment, and lifestyle. It is as if the Nile itself, its pastures, and its way of life shape their bodies. Another fascinating theory connects these peoples to the ancient civilizations of the Nile Valley, believing that for centuries, migrations between southern Sudan, Ethiopia, and Egypt created a unique genetic mix. Some anthropologists suggest that traits such as tall stature and slender build may have roots dating back to the populations that inhabited the banks of the world's most iconic river. A mixture of genetics, tradition, diet, and environmental adaptation has forged the so-called African giants. The daily life of the Dinka is impressive in itself. Many of them still live on vast open plains, herding cattle from childhood, walking miles every day, and sleeping in wall-less villages where the wind and dust shape their resilience. Their relationship with cattle is so deep that some young people drink milk mixed with a little cow's blood, an ancestral ritual that provides essential nutrients in an environment where resources are not always available. But this connection with cattle goes far beyond nutrition. In Sudan, especially among the Dinka and Nuer, a cow is not just an animal. It is wealth, status, dowry, security, and identity. Cattle represent the basis of the traditional economy, the unit of value, and the spiritual root of the community. That is why when a man wants to get married, he must pay the dowry in cows. Not in money, not in objects, in cows. Depending on the family and the beauty, reputation, and position of the woman, a wife can be worth between 10 and 30 cows, although there are cases where prestigious families demand many more. These cows are not just animals. They are part of the clan's history, inherited from generation to generation. Giving up part of the herd is an act of commitment as serious as marriage itself. At this point, we would like to ask you, Would you like to get wives in exchange for cows? How many cows do you think you are worth? Would you accept the law of lineage, or would you try to escape the country before doing something like that? Pause the video and leave us your comment. You know that doing so is the best way to support Uncensored World, so that we can continue working every week to bring you content as interesting as this. So thank you. For these tribes, cattle are also a spiritual symbol. Among the Dinka, for example, the colors, patterns, and horns of a cow can have meanings associated with lineage, ancestors, and clan protection. Often, a family feels more pride in a perfect cow than in any material possession. They hold authentic cattle competitions, where young people decorate their cows with white ash to protect them from insects, polish their horns, clean their skin with sand, and display them to the community as if they were living jewels. The cow's appearance reflects the status of its owner, since for a Dinka, a beautiful cow is not just a pretty animal. It is an extension of their own identity and that of their clan. In these competitions, the cows walk among the community like models parading on an ancestral catwalk. A particularly large, elegant cow with symmetrical horns can bring enormous prestige to its owner. This is no coincidence. In their culture, an exceptional cow is comparable to a work of art. The most impressive thing is that this veneration of cattle is totally linked to the law of lineage, since without cows, there is no dowry. Without a dowry, there is no marriage, and without marriage, there is no legitimate offspring for the clan. That is why marriage traditions, ghost marriages, and the continuity of lineage are deeply connected to the herd. Because here, a single cow can represent a promise, a future, an inheritance, or even the honor of an entire clan. And when you watch the African giants walk proudly among their gigantic herds, you understand that for them cows are not animals. They are the backbone of their world. Speaking of pride and lineage, in Sudan there are societies that maintain truly curious traditions related to seduction and status. In this country of ancient rituals and invisible codes, there are men who wear makeup, women who choose partners based on scars, and young people who participate in ceremonies where beauty does not always mean the same thing as it does in the West. Among the Beja of eastern Sudan, for example, many men use kohl, a dark pigment that surrounds the eyes, to highlight their gaze. They do not do this for fashion or modern coquetry. For them, an intense gaze is a symbol of virility, mystery, and spiritual power. A man with lined eyes is considered dignified, elegant, and attractive. Many travelers are surprised to discover that, in these communities, wearing makeup does not detract from masculinity, but rather enhances it. In other regions, especially among some Nilotic groups, beauty is expressed through ritual scarring. Men and women mark their skin from adolescence onwards. These scars tell stories. They mark adulthood, courage, resistance to pain, and surprisingly, the ability to seduce. Marked skin is not a defect for them, but a trophy. A body covered in elegant scars can be as irresistible as a perfect face in other cultures. In certain regions, women seek men with particular scars that represent courage. A line on the cheekbone can symbolize a rite of passage. 3 on the chest can speak of endurance. And a mark on the arm may indicate that the man has protected his family or won a territorial conflict. A man without scars, without marks or stories inscribed on his skin, may be considered incomplete by them. The same is true for men who wear makeup. Far from being seen as fragile, those who use kohl with style and presence are considered seductive, mysterious, almost magnetic. Many women in Sudan claim that the gaze of a man outlined with kohl is deeper and more attractive, and some marriages in these communities began exactly like that, with a gesture of makeup or a scar that opened the door to courtship. As you can see, Sudan is a country where beauty is measured in courage, tradition, and body language. A country where scars tell stories and made-up eyes convey power. A world where seduction is an ancient art, full of symbols that have survived for centuries. Symbols such as the Blue Nile, the most important river in this country, which not only shapes the landscape, but also shapes people, their beliefs, and their destinies. The Blue Nile originates in the mountains of Ethiopia, flows powerfully through Sudan, and along its course becomes the true backbone of these lands. The communities that live on its banks revere it as an ancient mother who offers life in a country scorched by the sun. But the Blue Nile also holds a dark secret that many tourists are unaware of. Its seemingly calm waters hide Nile crocodiles, considered by experts to be the most aggressive and territorial in all of Africa. These giants can reach lengths exceeding the size of a small boat, and their strength is so devastating that the villages living along the river still tell stories of entire boats capsized by their attacks. That is why swimming in the Blue Nile is a reckless act that no one should commit. In many sections of the river, just stepping into the water is enough to make the locals look at you with surprise or concern. They know. Here, crocodiles don't warn you, they don't run away, they don't hesitate. They are silent predators that move like shadows beneath the surface. And only those who have grown up on the banks of the Nile know how to recognize their signs before it's too late. But beyond the crocodiles on the Blue Nile, the villages that follow rituals, the giants that walk the plains, the markets that hide in labyrinths of shadow, all exist thanks to this river that lights up the Nile that reaches Egypt. As this river turns an arid country into a fertile corridor where, thousands of years ago, the greatest mystery in all of Sudan arose. A mystery made of stone, sand, kings, and spirits, its pyramids. The elders say that long before the Egyptian pharaohs built their monumental tombs, these lands already knew pyramids. In Sudan, under the Nubian desert sun, the kingdoms of Kush and Napata emerged, proud civilizations that dominated the course of the Nile long before the world understood its power. Few people know this, but Sudan is the country with the most pyramids in the world, many more than legendary Egypt. Since while Egypt has just over 100, Sudan has more than 250 scattered across its hills and dunes. Something that strikes those who know them is that the Sudanese pyramids do not resemble the Egyptian ones. They are taller and more pointed, narrow, elegant, almost like spears stuck in the sand. They rise in groups, forming stone cities where the spirits of kings and queens, priests and warriors still seem to watch over the horizon. It was these kings of Kush who, at a decisive moment in history, advanced northward and conquered Egypt, becoming pharaohs. They ruled from Thebes, wore Egyptian gold, and were called the Black Pharaohs. And when they returned to Sudan, they brought with them the architecture of the conquered country, but they transformed it. It was then that they began to build pyramids at a rate that Egypt never matched. Every king wanted his own. Every queen wanted her eternal resting place. And every priest wanted a tomb that spoke to the gods. Unlike Egypt, where pyramids were built in large funerary cities connected to monumental temples, in Sudan, entire necropolises emerged lost in the desert. Archaeologists say these pyramids are smaller than the Egyptian ones, but also more numerous and spiritual. Ancient scribes carved rituals, prayers, and mysteries into their walls. They tell of kings who fought against empires, queens who ruled with a firm hand, and gods who walked among men. These are pyramids that seek to impress not by size, but by meaning. And although they were forgotten by the whole world for centuries, today they are resurfacing as a secret that only the most curious travelers discover. Walking among them at dawn is like entering an ancient dream. The sun paints the pyramids red, the desert remains silent, and the wind blows as if it still wants to protect the secrets of the kings of Kush. If you've made it this far, you're probably interested in knowing how you can visit Sudan. That's why we at Uncensored World have done extensive research and are now telling you how to get there and enjoy this extraordinary country to the fullest. To begin with, getting to Sudan from America or Europe is not as easy as to more common tourist destinations, but it's not impossible either. Most travelers enter through Khartoum International Airport in the capital. From Europe, there are flights with stopovers in African countries such as Ethiopia or Kenya. From America, the route usually includes multiple connections in African cities such as Nairobi or Addis Ababa. As for visas, it is essential to arrange one before arrival. as it is mandatory in Sudan. In terms of the cost of living, Sudan is one of the cheapest countries in the world for travelers with an adventurous spirit. For example, accommodation and food can be very inexpensive. A local dish in a simple restaurant can cost as little as $10 or less, and a mid-range room can cost between $20 and $30 a night in certain more accessible regions. For those who want to get to know the country's tribes and traditions up close, it is possible to organize excursions to remote areas to visit the villages of the African giants or explore the impressive pyramids of Sudan. These trips usually last several days and include local guides who facilitate access and the experience. Prices vary, but a 3-day excursion can cost between $200 and $400, depending on the agency and the level of comfort desired. However, regarding safety, it is essential to clarify that Sudan is a country with regions where the situation is very tense. While many areas are perfectly visitable, there are areas where safety is not guaranteed, and many countries directly warn against traveling there. So it is probably not the best time to travel to this fascinating country. It is therefore recommended to always travel with professional guides, avoid venturing into very remote areas without a specialized organization, and stay up to date on the local situation before planning your trip. In addition, contact with tribes requires respect, sensitivity, and open-mindedness. Peoples such as the Dinka, although hospitable, deeply value their traditions and ways of life. Being a respectful visitor is key to an authentic and enriching experience. At Uncensored World, we hope this video has helped you discover Sudan, a country as fascinating as it is extraordinary. If you liked what you saw, don't hesitate to give it a like and leave a comment. It's the best way to support us so we can continue working every week and bring you content as impressive as this. And before you go, don't miss the video you can watch now where we explore another of the most mysterious and beautiful places on Earth. You're going to enjoy it.